Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're here to discuss Hunger by Roxane Gay. This is her memoir and it goes on to say Hunger, a memoir of my body. And it's a New York Times bestseller. It is by, again, like I said, Roxane Gay, which if you're not familiar, she is an amazing writer. She is Haitian American. Woo-hoo, shout out to Mazos. Which is why I was first familiar with her works, was because she is a Haitian American writer. You guys know I love women writers and women writers of color, but to get a woman writer of color who is Haitian, like that's something that's even more rare for me to find works from those type of authors. So I was very, very, very interested in reading her memoir. So I checked it out at the library and it took me quite some time to finish it. This is a memoir of her body. Like she says, it kind of takes you from the beginning of when her body was hers, when she felt like she first kind of lost control over her body, and basically some of the traumas that kind of have helped to kind of transform her view of her body and what she and her body have endured, and the policing on her body that has occurred throughout her life and presently. So she talks about not just the fact of her body in the sense of, you know, the male gaze or things of that nature, but also like her relationship with food, her relationship with her family, her relationship with others as far as her social interactions, how this has transpired into her professional work, and just how her relationship with her body has been something that has been a struggle with her throughout her life. It is very candid. It is very honest, it's raw, it's open, it's hard to read. Yeah, it's a lot. It's one of the most honest writings that I've ever read. So, on to that, Dwayne, what questions do you have? He has not read the memoir. Our style structure is kind of just to have a discussion about it to see if this would be something that he would want to read or not.
So, is there ever a moment where she said, you know, I want to be bigger, or I want to modify my body in a way that is not what the most of society would expect?
That is crazy. Yes. She talks about how she intentionally made herself bigger. Okay, so it's actually an excerpt right here in the front that's in the book. She says, I ate and ate and ate in the hopes that if I made myself big, my body would be safe. I buried the girl I had been because she ran into all kinds of trouble. I tried to erase every memory of her, but she is still there somewhere. I was trapped in my body, one I made but barely recognized or understood. I was miserable, but I was safe. And she talks about this yo-yo effect. Like, this is just one excerpt, but there's several points in her life where she loses weight and she intentionally gains the weight back. Like, she kind of intentionally is getting bigger. Like, it's like a safety net for her. Mm-hmm. And she wants to be smaller, but then she wants to make herself
that trauma or something.
Okay, so, you know, just a forewarning, you know, there are some graphic stuff described. There's abuse, there's different stuff that's described within the book of her life that is traumatic and hard to read. And her reaction to the trauma and trying to make herself safe repeatedly did result into the body that she has kind of used as her safety net. But yeah.
Okay. At what point in the book does she describe her body, or does she ever describe her body? And part of this feels weird because she's talking about, you know, how the gaze or how people talk about her body and how that fits into her life, and that's kind of what we're doing, which is kind of weird, but it's related to our review of the book, which is about that. But,
yeah, it is that's a good point, because it feels intrusive. Even when you're reading it, because she's so honest and open, part of it makes me feel like I'm being intrusive on her personal thoughts and her personal feels, and I feel like I don't really have a right almost to have this much access to her feelings about her own body.
All right, so does she describe her body in the book? Or
She
does
does.
She describe the environment related to it?
She describes her body in detail. She describes it as to how it makes her feel. She describes how other people feel about it. She describes the actual number of pounds that she is, how much she weighs. She describes what it's like to carry her body. She describes what it was like to try to learn to how to embrace, and how she's still trying to embrace her body. And the whole book is literally a memoir of her body, but it's also a memoir of her, because her body has been such a huge part of her life.
So does she think of, that's not really about literature though.
No, it might.
So does she think about her health?
Yes, she does think about her health, and that's another thing that she talks about. Is like, that's one of the things that people are wondering, like, do you not think about your health or care about your health? She does. She wants to live a healthy life, and you can still live a healthy life and be overweight and be big. So it's also trying to do that disconnection of, just because if someone's skinny or if someone's fat, that doesn't mean they are or are not living a healthy life. But somehow a lot of times we kind of, because seeing large bodies makes us uncomfortable, we kind of use that scapegoat of, are you concerned about your health? Or are you worried about, like, yes, technically we are thinking, hey, you should be more healthy, but there's something else as to why we police bodies, especially larger bodies. Because she talks about her family having genuine concern for her, but in the same way that they do, a lot of it is whether, you know, they love her, but at the same time, some of it is, you don't want someone to be that big. Like, there's people who are huge who are doing like yoga and live active lifestyles, and, you know, I know people personally who are larger, who are active and more active than me, and technically eat healthier and do these things. And, you know, so someone looking at them might be like, are they worried about their health? And, you know, that, like, she gets to kind of make you really think about your motives when you're talking about larger people.
That's a good point. Who is this book made for?
Some of it is for everybody. Some of it is probably for people who are struggling with the same insecurities and the same pains and the same traumas. And then some of it is probably just for herself. I'm not really sure who she's writing this to.
So how long did it take you to read it?
This actually took me quite some time to read. I would say about a week and a half, 2 weeks to read. It was kind of one of those reads that I had to read. I was reading poetry while I was reading it, and I could only read so many chapters of it, just because I found myself, I don't want to say depressed, but it was emotionally taxing on me when I would read it. So I would read like a chapter or two and then have to pause. Not because I didn't want to read anymore, but because I felt myself kind of getting warped and feeling a little dark. But I'm very sensitive in general, so I'm just a sensitive person, so things kind of take their toll on me in general, but this book was hard to read.
So in terms of your rating for it, what star rating would you give this book?
So, okay, star rating as far as the writing, I think the writing was like a 4.5 as far as just off of the writing, the way it was structured, everything. My overall enjoyment, it's hard to say I enjoyed the read. I would say overall, the way I felt when reading, it was like a 3.5, 3.7, simply because I felt like it was a story that needed to be told, but it wasn't a book that I can say that I enjoyed. Like I said, it was taxing on me. So it was a hard read. But I think I needed to read it.
Yeah. And so I'd probably give it a 3.5 star chance to read it, because this is something, what she's probably describing here is not something I've ever experienced. But then again, some of it maybe. So being a skinny person, you often hear comments or things about your body, and you have to navigate that. And then also within yourself, insecurities about it. And so, you know, I'm sure there are things that maybe I can relate to, and some, or most of it, I probably couldn't relate to, but it would be interesting to hear and get that perspective, and especially working in public health, to hear, you know, what different perspectives there are around what might make, or, you know, what circumstances there are around, you know, weight gain or weight loss, and just, you know, what things might help people or support people, even in supporting them and being in whatever body that they would choose to be in for the right reasons, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yes, I think everybody can relate to the book, which also makes it hard. Some of it, like you said, I can't relate to, but I can empathize with and sympathize with. Some of it I can relate to, and that aspect of it is hard as well, because it's like, yeah, it's just like the policing of your body. Like people who make comments about your body, whether they view it as positive or negative, like people, like just little things, like just if you're a curvier person or if you're any type of thing, the fact that you're always conscious of your body, not because of how you feel about it, but more so how you feel you're making other people feel about it, or worrying about how other people view your body. Like that aspect of reading it and not feeling almost like, how do you break that psychology off yourself, is hard. And I feel like it's just something that people struggle with for different reasons, for all different walks or shapes. But how much more if, for me to say I really truly understand what she's going through, no, I could relate in some aspects. But that's what made it even harder to kind of digest. But yeah, all in all, I hope you guys enjoyed this book review. Sorry we got a little tired. I know this setup's a little different, but I wanted to go ahead and make sure I got this review out to you guys. Anyways, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and comment below if you read it and what your thoughts were. I'll see you guys in the next one. Love and light. Bye.